You are a powerhouse in your business and in the boardroom. You delegate with confidence, lead teams with clarity, and make high-stakes decisions daily. You've built your success through drive, intelligence, and resilience. People admire your confidence, your leadership, your vision. In your romantic relationships, though, it's a different story. You second-guess your words. You downplay your needs. You try not to rock the boat. You shapeshift into the version of yourself you think they'll love most. Does this sound familiar? If so, you, my friend, definitely are not alone. Many high-achieving women lose their voice in love, not because they're weak, but because the patterns of people-pleasing and emotional overfunctioning run deeper than logic or the resume lines can reach. Let's explore how this disconnect happens and how you can reclaim your voice without losing your heart. You know, there's a fascinating paradox in the lives of successful women. The very traits that make us unstoppable in our professional life, like assertiveness, ambition, and self-trust, often vanish when it comes to romantic relationships. It's like flipping a switch. At work, you're decisive. At home, you're dutiful. At work, you trust your gut. In love, though, you ignore red flags. At work, you take up space. In love, you shrink to fit the other person's comfort. And even in friendships sometimes. Why does this happen? Well, many high-achieving women have spent their lives succeeding by mastering performance. And relationships activate the parts of you that aren't about performance at all. Relationships activate the wounded places. Remember, we've talked about relationships are for growth and healing. These wounded places are the ones that crave connection. The ones that learned long ago that being good and easy to love was the only way to feel safe. It might seem ironic. How can someone so powerful fall into people-pleasing? It's important to say that this behavior is not about weakness. It's often about adaptation. We've learned to adapt. Now, this adaptation shows up for us high-achieving women being highly empathetic and attuned to others' emotions. We've had to learn that. Conditioned to value harmony over honesty because we couldn't tell our truth. Rewarded for being the good girl, the fixer, or the helper because that kept us in good graces. And we were unconsciously afraid of abandonment or rejection when we express our real needs. And what this means is that what looks like people-pleasing in love is often a deeply ingrained survival strategy. You learned how to stay safe, loved, or accepted by minimizing conflict. You became the one who smooths things over, absorbs the discomfort, and silences your own voice to keep the peace. In doing so, though, you lost connection with your truth. I know I did. Let's talk about 5 signs that show you've lost your voice in love to give you an idea of what I'm referring to. Number 1, you don't speak up when something bothers you. You let things slide. You tell yourself it's not worth the argument, yet the resentment builds, right? and your emotional needs remain unmet. You've internalized the belief that rocking the boat might make you too much. Number 2, you prioritize their needs over your own every time. Let's talk for a second. Compromise is normal, but when your desires, boundaries, or even values always take a backseat to somebody else's wants, needs, desires, it's no longer a compromise, my friend. It's self-abandonment. And we talked about that in a prior episode, the heavy cost of self-abandonment. Okay, so pay attention to that. Number 3, you apologize for having feelings. Oh my goodness. Okay. This is where you preface your emotions with, I know I'm being dramatic, but, because somebody told you that. Or, sorry, I feel like blank, right? You know, we're apologizing as if having a natural emotional response is something to feel guilty about. How many times have you noticed yourself or other people saying, sorry for crying? I was just at an event the other day. And the same thing happened. You see it on TV all the time, right? Sorry. And it's just accepted. And this is nuts. All right. I know I'm on my soapbox right now because this is something I did all the time. And this is something that I feel passionate about that we've got to learn to stop. It's okay to have emotional responses. Okay. I'll calm down now. All right. Number 4, you stay silent to avoid rejection. You fear that being honest about your wants, whether it's more time, more intimacy, or even getting more clarity about something, will make you unlovable. So you stay quiet and hope they'll figure out your want. Yet staying quiet can also cause you to feel resentful because they don't figure it out most of the time. They aren't mind readers, yet somewhere along the lines, we learned or thought or someone told us, I don't know, that they are mind readers. But they're not, neither are we. And number 5, you feel small in the relationship. Somewhere along the way, you started making yourself smaller to preserve the connection. I did this pretty much in all my relationships. You know, you do this by downplaying your wins. You soften your edges or your passion. You edit your truth. And this is exhausting and painful for you. So why do us high performers struggle with vulnerability? Because that's what we're talking about. You know, in the workplace or in our businesses, we control the narrative for the most part. We know the metrics. We get rewarded for execution, logic, staying composed, all the stuff. But love does not work that way. Love is messy. It requires vulnerability. It asks you to be seen without your armor. And we've shined up that armor really well, haven't we? You know, and if your power has always come from doing, fixing, or achieving, you may not know how to simply be, especially with someone who has access to your heart. Many high achieving women struggle with vulnerability because they fear being perceived as needy. Anybody out there? They also equate self-worth with independence. I can do it myself. They carry the unconscious belief that love must be earned. They've never felt safe. especially expressing emotional needs in past relationships. So instead of showing up fully, they perform, they manage, they people please. And then the cycle begins again. They perform, they manage, they people please. Yeah. So how do you, if any of this resonates with you, how do you reclaim your voice without losing your softness? And I want to say here that we've also learned high functioning, high performing, high achieving women have learned that being soft is also weakness. And that is untrue. We can have our voice and we can still have softness. Because our goal isn't to become hard or guarded. I always, love the saying I learned years ago. When I close out my heart, I'm not just stopping someone from getting into my heart. I'm stopping myself from getting out. Because it goes both ways. If I put up a wall, I can't get out either. A lot of us high achieving and high functioning women have sure learned how to become hard or guarded, right? Because we had to, or we felt we had to. I mean, just think about, speaking of being guarded, think about, what came to mind with those shoulder pads and those power suits in the 80s. Okay, I know I'm dating myself here, but, we had that men's style of suit and we wore those super big shoulder pads. Okay, I remember working in the prosecutor's office in the 80s, my first really big job. And those women lawyers were not easy to work with at all. They really had to work hard to prove themselves in that industry, which made it no fun at all for anybody. This was something that the executive assistants, we would talk about a lot, about how easier it was to work for the men. And that just felt so sad because I could see these women attorneys. I could see them soften when I gave them a birthday present or brought them a birthday cake or saw them outside of the office. Yet they felt they had to exude this hard exterior to prove they were as good as the men in that office and in that courtroom. And some of them even held that outside of the office. And I know they had to do that. And it just felt so wrong. Now, things have changed somewhat, and that industry has gotten a little better, but I still believe we have a long way to go. Okay, off my soapbox, back to our topic. So the goal to reclaim our voice is to be authentically empowered to love openly while honoring yourself fully. Okay, so to get us going, here's 5 ideas on how to begin to reclaim that beautiful, authentic voice of yours. Number 1, we have to start by reconnecting with our inner voice. So I would like you to start asking yourself these 3 questions. The first one is, what do I actually want? Okay. You hear me say this a lot, yet let's stop right now. Okay. Raise your hand if you actually know and can express what you want, truthfully, in all areas of your life. How many of you? Okay, I see a few of you. Okay, a few of us know, but not a lot of us actually really know what we want in all areas, or we're afraid to say it. So give yourself the gift of taking a few minutes to think about it. What do I really want? Okay, the second one to ask is, what do I need? Now, this one can be hard because quite a few of us have unmet needs. This is something I talk a lot with my clients about. We learned in our younger years that our needs weren't important, or they were glossed over, they were never met. That's why we are striving so hard to be productive, and be the best. Unmet needs a lot of the time. So give yourself the gift of taking a few minutes or longer to feel and think into this one. Okay. What do I need? And then the third one to ask is, what am I afraid to say out loud? All right. Whoa. Let's take a breath on this one. Okay. Because this question can bring tears. There are so many things that we have buried or shoved in a box somewhere in our psyche that are aching to be let out and be witnessed and heard. What am I afraid to say out loud? You know, your voice can't come through if you're not willing to listen to yourself first. So after thinking and feeling into these questions, let's put it down on paper. Journaling, there is, scientific proof that that's good for us to do. And it also it changes the chemicals in our brain, and it moves the energy. So let's journal. Let's talk into our phone. Let's do some voice notes. Talk to yourself in the mirror. I like to do that, especially a third person, right? So that my psyche thinks someone else is telling me stuff. Maybe even try speaking your truth to a trusted friend. Okay, someone that has really proved that they have your best interest at heart. Because the more you hear yourself, the more confident you're going to become expressing yourself. All right, so number 2 on how to begin to reclaim your beautiful, authentic voice is challenge the fear of rejection. Every time you silence yourself to keep someone close, you reinforce the belief that your truth is dangerous. Oof. So let's flip the script and say to yourself, if I lose someone by being honest, maybe they were never safe to begin with. People who love you won't leave because you have feelings. They will lean in. They'll want to understand. And if they don't, well, that's good information, not failure. Number 3 on how to begin to reclaim your beautiful, authentic voice is practice micro boundaries. Okay, let's start small here. You don't have to overhaul your whole communication style overnight. Okay, I see you, high achievers. That's what we all try to do, right? Go big or go home. Yet in this case, let's go a little easier on ourselves. We're going to practice. So here's a couple statements that you can practice. Okay. If somebody, if somebody says something or something doesn't feel right to you, instead of just doing it like we can practice saying, that doesn't feel good to me. Can we talk about it? Yeah. Practice that one. And a really good one to start with is like if someone says something to you and it isn't quite landing right with you, it doesn't feel right. You got the kind of, before saying yes or getting upset or just doing it, say, I need a little time to think before I respond. Now, this is a good one because this is what responding versus reacting is that we've talked about before. Learning to pause is so life-changing. Okay. The more you practice these with someone safe, the safer you're going to feel doing it when the stakes feel a bit higher. So practice. Now, number 4 on how to begin to reclaim our beautiful, authentic voice is stop performing and start revealing. You don't have to be the cool girl or the easygoing partner or the ultra capable emotional caretaker. That was me. You're allowed to say, that hurt me. Or I'm scared. That's a big one. Being able to say that to two really close friends changed how I looked at myself and the situation. You can also say, I really feel nervous about blank. And another one would be, I need more from this relationship. Let your humanity come through. That's where real intimacy lives. And then number 5 on how to begin to reclaim our beautiful, authentic voice is reparent the part of you that feels unsafe. If expressing your truth makes you feel anxious, it could be tied to an old wound. So stay with me on this one. I know we've heard about a lot of wounds and we heard a lot about childhood stuff, but maybe you were punished for having needs. Maybe love felt conditional. That scared inner child that felt that way still lives inside of you. And she needs reassurance that it's safe now. So depending upon the type of wound, therapy can be super helpful. And we also, in coaching, there's a lot of coaches, trauma informed, etc., that do inner child work. And I do that in my coaching. Inner child work or inner children work, because we have more than one, can help heal at the root. When we do the inner child work, my clients have told me that they can finally feel comfortable in their own skin. They couldn't understand why they would get so scared or panicked when they didn't know how to do something, even as an adult, and that would cause them guilt and shame. Yet in learning to connect to their inner selves, their inner children, it was a game changer for them. It changed how they showed up for themselves and others. It gave them the confidence and the clarity that they needed. And, they started to feel loved, like they could love themselves, right? Because how many of us struggle with saying, I love myself? Yeah. So, your voice, my friend, is your superpower. When you reclaim your voice in love, something powerful happens. You stop chasing validation. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking. You stop settling. You start showing up as your full, whole self, confident in your ability to love deeply without disappearing. You begin choosing partners who are capable of meeting you at your level, not because you need them to complete you. Heavens, no. But because you value shared truth, mutual growth, and emotional safety. And most importantly, you start trusting that you are worthy of love exactly as you are. Being an owner in your business or CEO in the boardroom and a people pleaser in your relationship isn't a failure. It's a survival pattern. A survival pattern that made sense at one time. Yet now, it is the one that you have the power to dismantle. You don't have to choose between strength and softness. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to sacrifice your truth to be chosen. Your voice is not a liability. It's a compass. So use it, speak it, honor it. Be willing to reclaim that gorgeous, authentic voice of yours. You've already built an empire out in the world. Now it's time to come home to yourself so you can really enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.